Welcome back to AM Northwest. Set your family up for success this year without resolutions, goals, or guilt. Here to tell us how to do that, we welcome back author of the upcoming book, Staying Connected with Your Teen, family therapist Yshai Boussi. Welcome, Yshai.
Good to be
I'm
here.
excited about your book, so we'll talk about that later. But let's talk about how to set our family up for success this year. I love the idea of not making resolutions.
Yeah.
So how do we do this?
Yeah, I do too, because I think about it and it's so tempting to want to make a resolution. You know, we do it, it's almost like a habit, or we should, but 80 to 90% of them fail.
Right.
And so I was just thinking about a different approach, and one that feels more empowering and that we're more likely to be successful with.
Right. Okay. So how do we do that? Like, what's an alternative to a resolution?
So an alternative is to think about intentions. So one of the reasons that resolutions fail is because they're too big,
Right.
sometimes, or they're very outcome focused. So it's very specific. I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week, and then if I don't, then I feel like I kind of like failed, so why bother, and then we
Right.
quit.
Yeah.
So intentions are more broad, they're more general, and they're grounded in values of things that are important to me. We're motivated by things that are important to us.
Okay.
So if we think about it in the context of parenting and families,
Right.
I think it's useful to think about an intention like something that is important to you that you want to work on as a parent, that doesn't rely on your child changing their behavior, but is about you.
Oh, yeah.
So, for example, an intention might be, I want to work on being a better listener. So,
How would you do that, though?
so one of the things is, it's really interesting. We get so caught up in, tell me how to be a better listener.
Yeah.
And I could say, use I statements, or
Right.
paraphrase, or mirror back. But often that's not exactly what you need. What you need is to remember to listen, right?
Very true.
I mean, what I need as a parent is like,
Yeah.
okay, wait, I just interrupted my kid, which I do sometimes, right? I'm like, I'm not listening right now. They're tuning me out. So by just holding on to that intention that I want to work on this year, or maybe the first part of this year, I want to be a better listener. I'll come back to that and be like, oh yeah, I'm not listening right now. I want to work on it.
That's good. Okay. What are some other intentions that would be good for a family?
Yeah, so other examples might be, I want to be more playful with my kids.
Yes.
Sometimes we can be.
If only I could go back and be more playful with my kids. That would have been a good intention
we
for
can
me.
get caught up in it,
Yeah.
And see how it's an intention because it's general. There's a lot of ways to be playful.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to play video games with them. Maybe I'm going to throw out a few more like corny jokes. Maybe we'll watch a funny show together. There's lots of different ways I can do that.
Right.
But if I'm holding on to that, you know, it's like a mantra. It's like, I want to be more playful. Then
Yeah.
I'm more like, it's just going to happen in a range of different ways, and doesn't lock me in, or it doesn't feel as fake or disingenuous, like I'm not forcing it.
Right. And then, so should kids get involved with setting intentions? How does this work as a family? Do you do it together? Do you sit down as a family and have a meeting about this?
I think that can be a great idea when it's possible. It's fun. Doing these things together often can be. Kids are more motivated when they see us doing it also.
Right.
So there's value in that, and it's something you can work on together and remind each other, and like, I'm going to work on this, you're working on this, and then we can reinforce like, hey, I noticed you were like also practicing coping skills and working on being less reactive. Good job. How do you feel like I'm doing? So that can be helpful. Now, sometimes that doesn't work because you have a child who just doesn't want to, isn't going to engage. And so the reason I focus on the parent side is because that's okay. If your child isn't into it, you don't need them to also want to do something like they're set an intention.
Right.
We can still do it in sort of a unilateral way.
Right.
And that will help them change, even if they're not willing to do it.
Yes, because you're being a good role model. You're doing the thing that you said you were doing. But I wonder if you tell your child, depending on the age of the child, that you are working on listening better, and then they catch you not listening, will that backfire? What do you think about that?
Well, they might do a gotcha.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you said you were listening and you're not listening. Now, so parenting is the most humble thing. I make mistakes all the time. I have a teenager. I wrote a book about teenagers, right? I'm like, I don't always do these things because that's just real. We have to keep learning, and it takes humility. So our kids might call us out sometimes, but we can use that as a helpful information to say, you're right. Thanks for reminding me. I'm going to work on that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try again next time. Kids respect that when we take accountability and own it. and they appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, let's talk about your book briefly. So it's coming out in March.
Yes.
What can we look forward to?
Oh my gosh. So the number one thing that is important to help influence our kids, to help reduce their risk of whether it's drugs or alcohol, to improve their mental health, all these all these things we are scared of that we care about for our kids.
Yes.
The number one way we prevent that from them is connection with them, is our kids feeling connected. When they feel that from us, that buffers them. It's more important than all the rules or the monitoring apps, all these things, consequences. There's nothing more important. Now with teenagers, that's so hard.
Yes.
So I wrote a book to give parents a guide and a map for staying connected with a teenager who's like in their room a lot and doesn't seem interested. How do you do that? So I want to help them with that. There's also a section on expectations and accountability, though, because we don't want to just be their friend, and we don't want to be a doormat. That also helps with connection when they're so. I want to help parents do this because it is so hard and so important. Nothing's more important than connecting.
Nothing is more important, and I can't wait for that book to come out, and we'll have you back to talk specifically about that for a whole segment. So the book coming out in March again is Staying Connected with Your Teen. Yshai Boussi is the author and is always so full of helpful insights. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Tammy.
And we'll be right back with more AM Northwest. Stay with us.